The dew clung to the bent grass like a secret, heavy in the silence before dawn. Out here, quiet had its own weight, pressing down until the first light cracked the horizon. I started my rounds the same way every day, clippers in hand, the sharp scent of earth and sprinkler mist filling my lungs. Edges needed trimming, fairways smooth before the world woke up. But that morning, a swing sliced through the hush, a clean, distant crack. Her posture pulled my eye, tall and unyielding against the gray. Then the boss mentioned my new assignment, the back nine. Everything tilted. My body tensed as her form lingered in my sight, longer than the work called for. I pushed the wheelbarrow along the cart path, the metal rim grinding against gravel in the dim light. Raking bunkers came first, the sand shifting under my rake like it resisted being tamed. Under a gray sky that promised no warmth, I hauled clippings to the compost pile, arms burning from the load. This course sat on the edge of nowhere, where manicured greens bled into scrubland, sagebrush clawing at the boundaries. No one around but the wind rattling the cottonwoods, and the occasional coyote call fading into the hills. It suited me, that isolation. Hands deep in the dirt, thoughts grounded by the pull of roots and soil. My body moved on its own rhythm, shoulders rolling with each swing of the tool, sweat gathering despite the chill. The pro arrived early that day, her truck rumbling up the access road before the sun crested. Clubs clinked as she unloaded, the sound carrying clear across the empty expanse. She moved with purpose, bag sling over one shoulder, her form cutting sharp against the horizon like a blade. I paused at the edge of the fifth green, pretending to check the fringe, but my eyes tracked her. She set up on the practice tee, driver in hand, the grip firm, muscles coiling before release. Each swing was precise, the ball soaring in a high arc that caught the first light. From afar, it felt safe to watch, her focus mirroring something I kept buried, a longing that sharpened with every clean hit. I shook it off and got back to the bunkers, the rake biting into sand. But the air felt thicker now, charged like before a storm. Her presence lingered in my periphery, pulling glances I couldn't afford. The course demanded perfection, and so did I. But that morning, the routine cracked, just a little. By midday, the boss caught me near the clubhouse, clipboard in hand. "You're on the back nine starting tomorrow," he said, eyes on the horizon. "That pro's prepping for the regional qualifiers. Needs the holes pristine, no distractions." My stomach tightened. The back nine was remote, tucked into the rolling scrub where the wind howled unchecked. Closer orbit than I wanted, her world bleeding into mine. I nodded, wiping dirt from my hands, but inside, the ground shifted. That night, sleep came fitful, the echo of her swing thudding like a heartbeat I couldn't quiet. Dawn broke cooler the next day, frost edging the rough. I loaded the mower onto the cart, the engine coughing to life. The back nine waited, holes 10 through 18 stretching into the wilder part of the course, where irrigation lines snaked underground like hidden veins. I started with the 10th, blades whirring over the fairway, cutting close to the truth. She was already there, on the 12th, practicing approaches. Her shadow stretched long across the green, and I felt it before I saw her fully. The way her stance rooted her, unflinching. I killed the engine early, raking divots instead, the work a shield. But proximity stirred it, that unspoken tension coiling in my chest. Her swing's precision wasn't just skill. It mirrored the ache of wanting something ordered, contained. I watched from the rough, trimming fescue, the shears snipping steady. Wind carried the scent of fresh-cut grass and her, something clean, like pine and resolve. The isolation amplified it all. No other crew out here, just the two of us in this pocket of green amid the dust. Wildlife scattered at our steps, rabbits bolting from the thicket, birds wheeling overhead. My hands stayed busy, grounding the pull, but my body betrayed me with stolen looks. She paused once, wiping her brow, and our eyes met across the divide. No words, just a nod. It settled like dew, temporary, but marking everything. As the sun climbed, I finished the 11th, cart rumbling toward 12. The assignment forced this rhythm, her practice ground, now mine to tend. And in that shift, the longing sharpened, hidden but insistent, like a root pushing through hard soil. The mower hummed low as I circled the 10th fairway. blades shearing the grass close, the vibration traveling up my arms like a steady pulse. The back nine unfolded in waves of green, tucked against the scrub where the land turned rugged, holes winding through canyons of sage and rock outcrops. No crowds here, no clubhouse chatter, just the remote stretch where the course tested its edges, much like it tested mine now. I trimmed the rough next, shears biting into the fescue, pulling out clumps that snagged the ball's path. Sweat gathered at my temples despite the morning chill, the work demanding every pull and twist. But my eyes kept drifting, tracking the arc of her shots over the fairway, white against the blue horizon. She moved through her drills on the 12th, driver gripped firm, her stance a study in control. Each swing uncoiled with power, the club head whipping through the air, sending the ball slicing clean and far. Sweat beaded on her skin, catching the light as she reset, breath steady and deep after every release. I noted the calluses on her hands from afar, pale ridges against tanned fingers, earned from grips that didn't yield. Her focus pulled at me, that unbreaking line of her shoulders, the way her hips shifted with precision. I knelt to edge a bunker, rake in hand, but the proximity stirred something in my chest, a tightness that made each breath shallower. The world narrowed to her rhythm, my work slowing under the weight of her gaze, though she hadn't looked my way yet. By midday, the sun beat down harder, turning the air thick with the scent of baked earth and clipped turf. I hauled the trimmer to the 13th, the strap digging into my shoulder, muscles aching from the load. She switched to irons now, shorter shots dropping soft onto the green, her form adjusting, seamless. I watched her wipe her forehead with the back of her hand, the motion simple but intimate, revealing the line of her neck. My rake paused mid-sweep, sand scattering uneven. This assignment pinned us here, her practice ground overlapping my tending, no escape in the isolation. The wind picked up, carrying the faint thud of her clubs, and my body responded unbidden. Pulse quickening, hands gripping tools tighter to steady the pull. I moved to the 14th, trimming the thicket along the hazard, branches snagging my gloves. She teed off again, the ball's flight a perfect curve, landing just shy of the pin. Her laugh carried faint, a quick release after the shot, and it lodged in me like a divot. Proximity did this, forced the unspoken into sharp relief. My work dragged, eyes lifting more than they should, catching the flex of her arms, the steady rise of her chest. Chest tightness built, a coil I couldn't loosen, work blurring at the edges. She glanced once, toward the rough where I knelt, and held it a beat too long. I nodded, pretending to check the fringe, but inside, the ground felt less solid. As afternoon stretched, I pushed the cart toward the 15th, engine rumbling over uneven terrain. The demands piled, raking, mowing, hauling, each task a barrier, but her presence eroded it. Sweat traced down her back now, darkening her shirt, and I forced my gaze to the soil, hands plunging into dirt to anchor. Yet the pull grew, insistent, like irrigation lines feeding roots I hadn't planted. The course demanded flawlessness, and so did this new orbit, her shadow lengthening across my day. Then the snag came. Her wedge caught in the rough near the 16th, blade wedged deep in the scrub. She approached the thicket, frustration etching her brow. And that's when our paths crossed proper. Her calling out soft, pulling me from the fairway trim. She called out soft, her voice cutting through the wind like a fairway would. "Hey, mind giving a hand? Ball's in there deep." I straightened from the trimmer, wiping soil from my palms, and nodded. The hazard on the 16th swallowed shots whole, a tangle of scrub and rock that snagged everything. Her drive had hooked left, white dimple vanishing into the thicket. I set my tools aside, the shears clattering on the cart, and approached the edge. She stood a few paces back, wedge in hand, grip loose but ready, her eyes on the brush. I pushed through the branches, thorns catching my sleeves, the air cooler and damp under the canopy. Dirt shifted under my boots, unstable like my footing now. The ball nestled against a root, half buried, and I crouched to fish it out, fingers scraping earth. Behind me, her shadow fell long, and I felt the weight of it, her waiting, close enough to hear her steady breath. I straightened with the ball in my glove, turning to hand it over. Our fingers brushed as she took it, a quick graze of skin on skin, warm despite the chill. The air thickened then, heavy with something unspoken, heat rising unbidden in the space between us. "Thanks," she said, her look direct, holding mine a beat longer than needed. Her voice was low and steady, like the roll of a putt on true green. Up close, the calluses stood out, rough from endless grips, and a faint scent clung to her, sweat mixed with that clean pine resolve. I nodded, throat tight, pulse kicking up in my ears. "No trouble," I managed, stepping back, but my body lingered, drawn like a magnet to iron. She examined the ball, spinning it in her palm, then glanced at the wedge still clutched in her other hand. "That thicket's murder on lies. Needed a steeper angle, maybe 48 degrees next time." I nodded from the sidelines, pretending knowledge, though golf terms blurred in my head like distant flags. "Yeah, sounds right," I said, voice rough from disuse. She smiled faint, a quick curve that softened her focus, and reset her stance, wedge poised. The club sliced down, turf spraying, but the shot cleared the hazard clean, landing soft on the fringe. Her laugh followed, short and real, echoing in the quiet. I retreated to my tools then, rake in hand, but my mind replayed the brush of her hand, the directness of her gaze. Pulse still thrummed, chest tight, as I dragged the tines through sand, smoothing what the wind had rumpled. The rest of the afternoon dragged, her drills resuming on the 17th, irons thudding methodically. I edged the green nearby, shears snipping steady, but every clip pulled my eyes her way. The accidental contact lingered, a spark under skin, making the isolation feel smaller, charged. She paused once more, wiping her brow, and called across the divide. "You always out here alone?" Her tone was casual, but the question hooked, pulling more than words. "Most days," I replied, not looking up, focusing on the fringe. "Keeps things quiet." She nodded, swinging again, the ball arcing high. But that exchange stuck. Words simple but heavy, like ballast in calm water. As sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the back nine, I packed the cart, engine rumbling to life. Her truck idled nearby, club stowed, but she lingered by the tee box, watching the horizon. Our eyes met once more. No words, just that unflinching pull. I drove off slow, the path winding through scrub, body humming from the day's snag. That night, in the shed behind the maintenance barn, I replayed it all. The brush, the thanks, her low voice mentioning angles like secrets. Sleep came restless, sheets twisting, body betraying with heat that wouldn't fade. The routine shifted then, turning anticipation into ritual, each dawn pulling me back to her orbit, the course no longer just ground to tend. The shed smelled of oil and damp wood, the single bulb swinging faint overhead as I sat on the stool, replaying her words. That brush of fingers, the low thanks, it looped in my head, simple but insistent, like a ball circling the cup before dropping. I could still feel the warmth of her skin, the way it lingered on mine longer than it should. Body betrayed me that night, heat pooling low as I lay on the cot, sheets twisting around my legs. Sleep came in fits, her stance flashing behind my eyes, tall, rooted, unflinching. What was this pull, sharp as a divot knife slicing turf? I pressed my palms to my thighs, willing the ache to settle, but it rooted deeper, like irrigation lines feeding something I hadn't meant to plant. Out here in this rural stretch where the course met endless scrub, eyes watched from the edges. Small-town whispers carried on the wind. Folks in the diner trading glances over coffee, judging what didn't fit their straight lines. My job hung on it. Discretion the only fence between steady pay and the boss's scowl. One wrong look, one rumor snaking through the crew, and I'd be back to hauling hay on the ranch outskirts, hands raw from wire and dust. The prose world didn't bend to that. She moved through tours, spotlights, crowds that cheered her name. Me? Dirt-stained hands, calluses from rakes and mowers, life measured in greens kept flawless. Attraction like this felt dangerous. A hidden root under the turf, pulling deep and unseen, threatening to crack the surface if I let it grow. I stood in the dim light, pacing the concrete floor, boots scuffing faint. The emotional weight pressed, heavy as wet clippings in the barrow. Why her? The precision of her swing mirrored my own routines, controlled, deliberate. But hers aimed for horizons I couldn't reach. Self-doubt clawed in, whispering of worlds clashing. Her leather grips, my worn gloves. Her travel bags, my fixed patch of earth. I gripped the edge of the workbench, knuckles whitening, the wood rough under my fingers. Thoughts churned like sand in a bunker, swirling without settling. Was it the isolation amplifying it, or something real, tugging at the core? The course grounded me always, soil steady underfoot. But now it felt unsteady, her presence shifting the lay. Dawn crept in slow gray light, filtering through the shed's cracked window. I rose, muscles stiff from restless turns, and stepped out into the chill. The air bit sharp, carrying the scent of frost on sage. I loaded the cart again, rake and shears clinking, hands moving on autopilot. Gripping the rake tighter, I drove to the back nine, the engines rumble a low anchor. The ground stayed solid, tires crunching gravel, but inside, the churn persisted. A traction, a weight I carried alone, hidden like a ball in deep rough. Her truck was there already, parked by the 10th tee, steam rising from the hood. She emerged as I approached, coffee thermos in hand, nodding once. No words at first. I parked the cart, stepping out to check the fringe, but she held out the thermos, steam curling in the cold. Black, right? Saw you with it yesterday. Her voice was steady, eyes meeting mine brief. I took it, fingers brushing the metal. Warm, not skin this time, but close enough to stir. Yeah, thanks. We stood in silence then, sipping side by side, the back nine stretching quiet around us. Her presence built the pattern, dawn after dawn, coffee shared without fanfare. The pull eased a fraction in that quiet, but the root held, deep and insistent. The sun edged up, warming the handles of my tools. I set the thermos down, rake in hand, and got to work, smoothing bunkers, trimming edges. She teed off nearby, the swing's crack echoing clean. Our eyes met mid-morning, across the fairway. No nod this time, just a hold that said enough. The rural pressures faded in the moment, job's discretion a distant fence. But the self-doubt lingered, her tour-bound life a shadow on mine. Still, the sensory anchor held. Dirt under nails, ground firm, thoughts churning slower now. This ritual took shape, coffee's warmth a bridge, pulling us into the day's rhythm. By noon, the thermos empty, I watched her from the rough, shears snipping steady. The attraction settled, not gone but woven into the work, like veins under soil, feeding without breaking through. Whispers of town eyes felt far, the course our pocket. Bodies still betrayed in quiet moments, heat flashing unbidden, but I gripped the tool tighter, letting the earth steady me. Her laugh carried after a solid putt, light across the green, and I smiled, faint, unseen. The pattern built, Dawn's coffee a silent promise, anticipation rooting deeper than doubt. Days blurred into a rhythm, Dawn pulling me from the cot with the same quiet insistence. I prepped the greens flawless now, pushing the mower in tight circles over the 10th, blades humming low to leave no stray blade uncut. The back nine gleamed under my hands, fringe edged sharp, bunkers raked smooth as silk. Her shadow followed, long in the early light, stretching across the fairway as she warmed up. She arrived with the sun, truck gravel crunching, clubs clinking like a familiar call. I nodded from the cart, thermos waiting on the dash, black, steaming, passed without words. Our sips synced in the chill, breath fogging the air, the course waking slow around us. By mid-morning, the routine deepened. I trimmed the rough on the 11th, shears snipping steady through fescue. eyes lifting to track her irons. She dropped shots soft onto the green, form coiling and releasing, sweat tracing her collarbone. A nod across the divide sometimes, quick but weighted, acknowledging the space we shared. Once, after a long approach, I left a water bottle in the shade of the 12th tee box, cool from the cooler, cap loose. She found it later, twisting it open mid-swing, a faint smile cracking her focus. No thanks spoken, just eyes meeting brief, the gesture settling like dew on turf. My hands stayed busy, hauling clippings to the edge, but her presence wove in, pulling the day's thread tighter. Tension built in the small things. Her laugh came after a good putt on the 13th, rolling true into the cup, the sound carrying clear over the wind. It hit me low, a thud in my chest like repairing a divot. Quick press of soil, mending what the club tore. I paused at the bunker, rake mid-sweep, watching her retrieve the ball, hips shifting easy. Our eyes met mid-swing once, her driver arcing high, mine locked on the follow-through. The hold stretched, unflinching, until the ball thudded distant. Heat rose then, unbidden, making my grip slick on the handle. Work dragged slower those moments, body aware of her every reset, the coil of muscle under shirt. Afternoons brought the physical metaphors home. Heart thudded like that divot repair, patching unseen wounds with each stolen glance. I edged the 14th hazard, branches parting under my clippers, when she approached the cart path narrow between scrub. Our shoulders brushed, accidental at first, her bag swinging close as she passed. The contact lingered, fabric catching, warmth seeping through layers. She paused, turning slight, eyes on mine. Tight fit out here. Her voice low, steady, hand steadying on the cart side. I nodded, pulse hammering, the air thick as bunker sand. The linger turned to touch then, her fingers grazing my arm brief, checking for a snag, or something more. Skin tingled after, the hint of intimacy rooting deep, like lines under soil feeding without breaking ground. The gestures multiplied quiet. Another water bottle on the 15th, this time with a rag draped over, clean, folded. She wiped her face after, nodding thanks across the green, her laugh following a chipped shot that spun back perfect. Tension coiled tighter, eyes meeting mid-swing more often, holds that said what words didn't. My body moved through the work, raking, trimming, hauling, but her shadow pulled it all, making the isolation feel full, charged. Heart's thud echoed the repair, mending the ache in silence, each day layering the ritual deeper. By evening, as sun dipped gold over the back nine, the pattern held firm. I packed tools slow, watching her final putts, the ball dropping clean. A nod goodbye, sometimes her hand lifting brief and wave. The shoulder brush replayed in my head driving back. The touch a spark under skin. Body settled into it, anticipation blending with the grind. Her presence no longer distant, but woven. But the sky shifted that last day. Clouds gathering thick over the hills, wind picking up sharp. A storm brewed, dark edges rolling in from the scrub, promising sheets of rain. I glanced at her truck idling, the air heavy now, mirroring the coil inside. We drove separate, but the charge lingered, pulling toward whatever broke next. Clouds boiled darker as I packed the last of the tools, wind whipping dust across the 15th green. Her final swing cracked sharp, the ball slicing into the gloom, but thunder rumbled low, answering back. Rain hit sudden, sheets slamming the course like a divot knife through turf. I dashed for the maintenance cart, engine sputtering to life under the downpour, wipers slapping futile. Visibility dropped to gray streaks, the back nine blurring into scrub. Her truck swerved close, headlights cutting through, then veered toward the cart, door flying open as she climbed in, soaked and urgent. "Can't make it back," she said, voice raised over the roar, water streaming from her hair. I nodded, shifting the cart into gear, tires sloshing over flooded paths. The shelter was makeshift, a low overhang by the 17th tee, but the storm pinned us here, rain hammering the roof like irons on range mats. We huddled in the confined space, shoulders brushing tight, the bench seat forcing closeness. Wet clothes clung, her shirt molding to skin, mine heavy against back. Breath mingled warm in the chill, fogging the dash. The air thick with rain, and her pine scent sharpened by wet. Lightning cracked overhead, jolting the cart with a shudder. She steadied against it, hand landing on my arm. Firm, calloused fingers gripping sleeve. Pulse leaped under her touch, the pull escalating, heat cutting through damp cold. Eyes locked then, unflinching, rain blurring the world outside but sharpening hers. Brown, steady, holding questions we hadn't voiced. I didn't pull away. The storm mirrored it all, turbulent, unavoidable, churning inner ground I'd kept level. She broke the gaze first, staring at the dash, water dripping from her jaw. "Tours get lonely," she said quiet, voice low under thunder. "Crowds cheer, but nights in hotels, it's just walls and silence. Like this course. Beautiful, but empty if you're not careful." Her words hung, vulnerable, stripped by the rain. I swallowed, the admission cracking my own shell. "This place holds me," I replied, hands tight on the wheel. "Dirt and greens, the grind. It's steady. But out here alone, it weighs. Like roots too deep to pull up." Breath caught as I said it, the course's hold spilling out, mirroring hers. No judgment in her nod, just understanding. The confined space shrinking further. Thunder rolled again, closer, the cart rocking slight. Her hand stayed on my arm, steadying not just from the jolt, but something deeper, escalating the pull, body aware of every inch. Wet fabric, chilled skin, but her warmth seeped through, breath quickening in sync. Abandoned irons lay nearby, rust spotting the clubs she'd left mid-drill, water pooling around grips. The storm tore at them, mirroring the turmoil inside. Exposed, weathering what couldn't be raked smooth. I glanced at the rust, then back to her, eyes locking once more, unflinching. Silence stretched, heavy as the downpour, words unnecessary now. Rain eased gradual, sheets turning to drizzle, the world outside softening to mist. We sat a beat longer, shoulders still close, her hand lifting slow from my arm, leaving skin tingling. "Better head back," she said. But her voice carried reluctance, the charge lingering like ozone in air. I started the engine, wipers slowing, the cart rumbling through puddles toward the access road. Her truck waited, but she paused at the door, rain beating on lashes. A nod, quick but weighted. Then she climbed in, tail lights fading into evening gray. The drive back dragged, core steaming under fading light, every bump replaying her grip, her words on loneliness. Body hummed from the confined heat, the storm's mirror cracking reservations. Calm settled outside, but inside, the charge pulsed stronger, pulling toward quiet after. Night fell cool, shed light flickering as I hung wet gear, mind on her hotel room, tours waiting. Sleep came fitful again, rain pattering roof. But the turmoil rooted deeper. Unspoken promises in the downpour. Sun broke through the next morning, steam rising from the greens like breath on cold metal. I drove the cart slow along the back nine, rake propped beside me, the air still thick with damp earth. Post-storm quiet settled heavy, the scrub glistening, every leaf edged sharp. I parked on the hill overlooking the 12th, alone with the wind whispering through sage. Tools in hand, I stepped out, boots sinking slight into softened soil. The course felt renewed, bunkers filled smooth, but inside, the charge from yesterday pulsed steady, her hand on my arm, a ghost under sleeve. She appeared then, climbing the rise with purpose, bag slung low, steps deliberate over uneven ground. No truck this time, just her, cutting through the hush like a wedge through rough. Eyes met as she neared, unflinching, the distance closing fast. I straightened from the fringe I'd been edging, shears dropping to my side. Words faltered in my throat, the raw edge of it all spilling, silent. She stopped close, closer than drills allowed, her breath visible in the chill. "Last night," she started, voice low, but trailed off, brown eyes searching mine. No need for more. The understanding hung wordless, bodies shifting nearer, the hill's slope pulling us in. The air between thickened, rural hush amplifying the space. Her hand lifted, hesitant at first, then firm on my shoulder, calluses rough against fabric. I mirrored it, palm flat on her arm, feeling the muscle tense beneath. Chill bit at exposed skin, but her warmth cut through, drawing me in. Bodies closed the gap, chests brushing, the world narrowing to that point of contact. Hug tightened then, arms wrapping sure, her chin resting against my collar. I clutched her back, fingers digging into shirt, the fabric damp from morning dew or yesterday's rain. Heartbeat thudded loud in my ears, amplified by the quiet. Steady drum against her, syncing with mine. Lips met soft and sure, a press that started tentative, then deepened. Her mouth warm, tasting of coffee and resolve, mine yielding slow. The kiss unfolded like a slow putt, deliberate, rolling true into the cup. Wind tugged at us, but we held. Bodies locked against the hill's chill, her hand sliding to my waist, pulling tighter. Heat bloomed low, spreading from core, the emotional release flooding out, tension uncoiling like a swing's follow-through, free and full. Rural expanse faded, just touch now, skin aware of every shift, every breath shared. Her fingers traced my spine, light but insistent, grounding the rush in something solid. We broke apart gradual, foreheads touching, breaths mingling ragged. Arms held longer, reluctant to release, the promise settling in shared silence. Her eyes stayed on mine, unflinching, a nod passing unspoken. This, real, rooted. I felt it settle, the pull no longer hidden but claimed, body humming from the peak. She stepped back first, hand lingering on my hip, thumb brushing once. "Tournament tomorrow," she said quiet, the shadow crossing her face. Choices pressed then, her world calling. Qualifiers, tours, distances that stretched like fairways unending. I nodded, throat tight, the hill feeling steeper now. Wind picked up, carrying sage scent sharp as she shouldered her bag. Our fingers brushed one last time, deliberate, before she turned down the slope. I watched her go, stance steady but altered, the quiet amplifying the ache of space. Tools waited, rake handle cool in my grip, but work blurred, mind on her lips, the hug's warmth lingering like sun on turf. The course stretched below, greens gleaming post-storm, but dawn's light carried the tournament's weight, heavy, pulling her away, choices pressing like roots testing soil. Body settled slow, the release a balm, but the promise hung, silent and sure. Afternoon dragged after, trimming the 13th alone, shears snipping mechanical. Her absence echoed, the hill's moment replayed in every clip, kiss soft, arms tight, heartbeat shared. Emotional weight lifted fraction, but tournament shadow loomed, dawn bringing decisions. Would she return, or fade like mist over scrub? I gripped the tool tighter, ground firm underfoot, the rural hush holding the question. Dawn filtered through the shed's window, pale light catching dust motes in the air. I rose stiff, muscles aching from the hill's slope and the night's restless turns. The kiss replayed, soft press, her warmth against chill, but tournament shadow loomed, pulling her away. I stepped out, boots crunching frost-kissed gravel, the course gleaming post-storm. Greens shone vibrant, water beating on blades like unshed tears. I loaded the clippers onto the cart, engine rumbling low, hands trembling slight on the handles. The vibration traveled up my arms, unsteady as my pulse, the connection from yesterday rooting deep, like irrigation lines under soil, hidden, feeding without choice. The back nine waited, holes stretching quiet into scrub. I drove slow, wind carrying sage sharp, the air cooler now with her impending leave. She was there already, by the 10th tee, bags packed neat against her truck, travel case zipped, clubs stowed methodical. Final practice swing unfolded as I parked, her driver arcing high, ball thudding distant on the fairway. I watched from the edge, trimmer in hand, pretending to check the fringe. Her form cut clean against horizon, shoulders coiling one last time. But the rhythm felt altered, weighted, like a putt with break she couldn't read. Sweat beaded faint on her neck, the morning chill biting deeper, and my chest tightened, hands gripping the tool harder to steady. Work pulled me in, clippers whirring over the 11th rough, shears snipping fescue close. But focus splintered, eyes lifting to her shadow lengthening across green. The internal shift settled, connection no longer surface, but deep-veined, irrigation feeding roots I'd ignored too long. Body hummed from it, heat flashing unbidden as I knelt to edge, soil cool under knees. Her laugh carried once, short after a chipped shot that spun true, but it lodged different now, promise laced with ache. I straightened, wiping dirt from palms, the trembling returning to my fingers. The course demanded precision, greens flawless under my care. But her departure prep blurred it all. Bags a stark reminder of distances ahead. By mid-morning, sun climbed higher, warming the handles. She packed the last club, truck door creaking open, then paused, glancing my way across the divide. No words at first, just eyes meeting, unflinching, the pull drawing her near. I set the clippers down, stepping from the rough, heart thudding like divot press under boot. She approached, slow. Shadows from the cottonwoods dappling the path, her hand lifting to brush mine brief. Qualifiers start tomorrow, she said, low, voice steady but edged with reluctance. I nodded, throat tight, the air thick between us. Gentle farewell came then, quick hug in the tree's shadow, arms wrapping firm, her chin against my shoulder, scent of pine and leather clinging. She pulled back slight, breath warm on my ear. I'll return, after the tour. Whisper soft, promise sealed in the hush, her fingers squeezing mine once. I held the gaze, body leaning in despite the ache, the connection rooting firmer, like lines pulsing life underground. She stepped away, truck door shutting with a thud, engine turning over gravel. I watched taillights fade down the access road, dust swirling faint, the back nine emptying sudden. Course felt hollow then, greens gleaming but silent, wind rattling sage without her swing's crack. Lingering ache settled low, chest heavy as wet clippings, yet fuller too, memory filling the space, her touch echoing in every blade I trimmed. Afternoon dragged, clippers humming mechanical over the 12th. Hands steadier now, but mind replaying the hug, the whisper. The isolation amplified it, scrub closing in, wildlife scattering at my steps alone. Body moved through routine, raking bunkers, hauling scraps, but the shift held, attraction no longer pull but foundation, deep as soil veins. Sun dipped low, casting long shadows, the course fuller with what we'd claimed. I parked the cart by the 16th, tools stowed, when I spotted it. Her glove tucked in the toolbox, leather worn soft, scent of her lingering faint. Final object left, sealing the unspoken bond, a tether across horizons. Evening light slanted low across the 16th, casting the toolbox in shadow as I latched the cart. The glove caught my eye then, tucked into the corner amid wrenches and shears, leather worn soft at the palm, fingers curled like they still gripped a club. I pulled it out slow, the material cool against my skin, carrying her scent faint but sharp. Pine mixed with earth, the kind that clung after rain. It settled in my palm, heavy with what she'd left behind, a deliberate tether in the quiet. No note, just the glove, sealing the bond we'd forged in brushes and silences. Her promise whispered against my ear. I slipped it into my pocket, the weight pressing against thigh as I walked the back nine alone. Wind picked up, carrying an echo of her swing, the clean crack that had sliced mornings open, now faint like a memory rolling true. Sagebrush rustled at the edges, the course stretching wilder here, greens fading into scrub where no eyes watched. I stood on the 12th hill, the same slope where lips had met, boots sinking into softened turf, still damp from storm. The view unfolded below, fairways winding like veins, bunkers smooth under fading sun, irrigation lines humming distant underground. Her absence echoed in it all, truck long gone down the access road, but the glove warmed against me, rooting the pull deeper. Body settled gradual, the ache easing like soil after tilling, loose, ready for what came next. Attraction no longer a hidden weight dragging through days, but something lifted, claimed in that unflinching gaze. I breathed deep, chest loosening, the tightness from rural whispers and self-doubt uncoiling like a swings release. No more stolen glances from the rough, no pulse hammering under stolen touches. It lived now, open in the expanse, her return a horizon I could aim for. Hands flexed, calluses matching hers, dirt under nails no longer a barrier but a bridge. Our worlds overlapping in this pocket of green, tours and tending intertwined. Wind tugged at my shirt, carrying dust from the scrub, and I glanced toward the horizon where her qualifiers waited. Crowds, spotlights, distances that tested resolve. But possibility hung in the quiet expanse, vast as the back nine under dawn. She'd swing through it, driver firm, and I'd tend here, rake steady, the bond pulling us back. No rush, just the slow burn we'd built. Coffee sips, shoulder brushes, storm's grip. Rooted like fescue in hard ground. Emotional payoff washed over me then, warm as sun on skin, body humming not with tension but peace, the hidden root breaking surface at last. I turned slow, walking the fairway toward the 10th, glove still pocketed, its leather creasing under my thumb. Sun dipped lower, warming my arms despite the chill, casting long shadows that danced like her form mid-swing. Silence invited the next step, dawn's ritual waiting, thermos ready, eyes scanning the access road for truck gravel. Wildlife stirred in the thicket, rabbits bolting at my approach, birds wheeling overhead, the course alive in her echo. I paused at the hazard, branches parting underhand, remembering the ball, retrieved, fingers brushing. No more sidelines. This was shared ground now. Attraction settled into rhythm. Body light as I clipped a stray fescue. Night crept in gradual, stars pricking the sky over scrub, the back nine hushed, but full. I drove the cart back, engine rumbling low, glove a constant press. Reflection lingered, her laugh after putts, hand steadying in rain, lips soft on the hill. The emotional weight balanced now, no longer churning thoughts but steady pulse, like irrigation feeding deep. Open futures stretched, possibility in every arc she'd trace, every green I'd smooth. Sun's last warmth faded on my skin, but the silence held invitation. Step forward, into whatever swing came next, bond sealed in leather and wind. Glove in hand, the course stretched endless under twilight, wind whispering her return. If this quiet pull ever tugged at you too, share your story below. Subscribe for more tales of roots finding light.